someone who's got a disabled daughter, and she's 18 now. The cuts that you're all talking about, where is it going to come from? Rich, or is it going to affect the poor? It's going to affect the poor. And I say that because my daughter, who is, as I said, is 18, she's heard in the news this week that these cuts are coming. How is that going to affect her? How is it going to affect everybody that suffers from those kind of disabilities? Yet she's also heard that the MPs are going to get a 2.8% raise on their salaries. Now, how does that justify? Is it you're taking it from my daughter and you're putting it in your pocket?
Who should be plugging that deficit, benefit claimants or billionaires?
Well, look, the deficit in the long term needs to be filled by getting the economy back on track so that it's growing and creating strong businesses and good jobs, so people are paying taxes when they see their pay rising. And it needs to get back on track because we need to get public spending under control to make sure that our public services are delivering better outcomes for people at better cost. There are too many examples of public services failing people but costing huge amounts of money. You can think about children with additional needs or children's social care or temporary housing. There's a whole list of things that we are working hard to get a grip of. But also, the welfare system had got to a place where it wasn't supporting people in the way that it was designed to. We've now got 1 in 8 young people coming out of education and not going into work or training and staying at home on universal credit payments. We need to make sure that they're given the opportunity to be able to go and work and to benefit from that. And we've been taxing wealthy people too, people with the broadest shoulders. We've changed the non-dom tax status. These are the richest people often in our country. We've changed inheritance tax and capital gains tax to raise more from assets that you might inherit or be able to sell. If you happen to have a private jet, it's now much more expensive to use it after years of it being cheap under Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. And we've been adding VAT onto private schools to redistribute that money into the state school system. The country's in a very fragile place, though. The economy is still pretty tough. The public spending settlements that we have are really challenging, and that's why it feels hard right now, and it's not feeling as positive or as easy as we want it to be. But coming into government, we've managed to get a grip of the situation we've inherited, and now we've got to work really hard to be able to turn the country around so that we can start to lift that pressure and deliver opportunity and prosperity for everyone.
We have given the literal assets of this country to very, very, very wealthy people, and we have created a tax system that makes it voluntary for them to pay tax. If you do that, ordinary people will get poorer and poorer and poorer every year, and millionaires and billionaires will get richer and richer every year, and ordinary people will not be able to buy homes and have family.
Millionaires per month left the UK last year. That's 1 every 45 minutes. The top 1% pay 30% of taxes. The top 10% pay 60% of taxes. We need to get growth in this country. If we raise taxes even more, we're already one of the highest tax-paying countries in the world. We're going to encourage these to leave.
The rich do pay their taxes. You're saying that you think they should pay more tax on their wealth? And are you differentiating between wealth or inheritance? Because it's not as if European nations haven't tried this. They've tried it, and unfortunately, it's failed.
Yeah, whenever people suggest this to me, I always think of the Conservative second home stamp duty tax. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm answering it now.
OK.
Yeah,
what do you think we would do differently that the European countries have not done?
When the second home stamp duty tax was brought in, I was very surprised because I didn't think the Conservatives would tax rich people. I looked into it. There was an exemption for people who bought 7 or more homes at once. And then Jeremy Hunt went and bought 7 homes.
Raising revenue in a fairer way. And the way to do that is to go after the companies that are making billions and billions and billions in profits that can afford to pay a little bit more to help get our public services back on their feet. So we would start by reversing the tax cut that the Conservatives gave to the big banks, take it back to 2015 levels. We would increase taxes on the big social media companies, on the big online gaming companies that are making billions of pounds in profits. And that would be an alternative way to raise the money that we desperately need to get our NHS and our education system back on their feet.
The Conservative manifesto proposed 12 billion in welfare cuts. What the government has done is has cut 5 billion. You want to do more than twice that.
The big difference here is actually really clear.
It's the sum.
No.
More than twice.
No, it's not. It's because we were cutting national insurance, and Labour have put it up.
I'm talking about the welfare bill.
Exactly.
The question is who should be plugging the deficit? Benefit claims. I'm simply making the point, Richard. I'm simply making the point that you're critical of the government. You're the opposition. That's absolutely your position. But you were proposing more than twice as many cuts.
No, what we were not doing was saying that people should have... What we were not doing is saying that we were going to raise the tax on employing people. I was out with charities there earlier on. A charity which looks after special needs kids saying they're facing £100,000 extra in national insurance tax because of the measures taken by this government. The question was asked, who should pay for what's happening, benefits claimants or billionaires? The truth is, growth is down because of the decisions that this Labour government have taken. It's halved this year. It's going to be 2%. It's now 1%. Yeah, but it's still lower over the entire course of the period. Over the course of the next few years, it certainly is. And that is what you're all going to be paying for. And the reason is because back in the back end of last year, national insurance was hit right across businesses and charities right across our country, and they are not going to be employing people because of those extra taxes on them. Think of it. If you were employed before they introduced a national insurance tax rise, people paid 13.8% on everything over £9,100 if you're an employer. Now you pay 15% on everything over £5,000. Who's it really impacted by that? Part-time workers, young people starting out.
It needs to be clear we'll not take this line down. Or France saying the EU has to raise its own tariffs. Do you think that's the wrong approach?
We have to take a different approach in Britain. And look, whether it's on the debate on tax or the debate on tariffs, there's no easy answer. If there was an easy answer, we would take it, obviously. These are complicated issues, but we think we're providing the right type of leadership in negotiating with the Americans. We have to remember that the UK and the US has an important relationship, irrespective of who the president is from any time to time. We trade, we cooperate on security and defence, we've got shared values in the world.
To a trade deal of being outside the EU, which is not something that the Lib Dems credit Brexit for, but we are in a slightly different position to our continental neighbours.
But he is saying he's going to put the tariffs on the UK as well as the EU and
Sure, but I'm just
else.
saying that because we aren't in the EU group, we may have a better negotiating position. And Rachel Reeves was saying today that there is an ongoing dialogue with the Americans about this. Not sure how a Tesla tariff helps the Lib Dems' green agenda either. What's weird, and the dichotomy here for Trump is that on one hand he's saying to Europe, you must step up your defence spending, and on the other hand he is clobbering their economy, which doesn't make sense. He's not going to get that extra spending by NATO countries if the likes of Germany and France see a huge drop in their GDP because their economies are so reliant on their car exports. So in that way, it's economically nonsensical.
So the question is, how do we respond?
It's the art of the deal, and it's for Darren and Darren's people to try and go over to America and try and work out what kind of deal could be brokered with somebody that is clearly, yes, there's protectionism because of this isolationist America First approach, but also his shtick with the American people is, I'm going to make you richer and I'm going to bring down the price of eggs. And therefore, this is a man that could be dealt with. I do agree with the lady who has made the suggestion that it probably would have been better if Labour in opposition had pitch-rolled for the prospect of a US presidency being once again held by Donald Trump, rather than David Lammy and co, Sadiq Khan and others, spending all that time slagging him off.
So there's only one language that Donald Trump understands, and that is the language of strength. And it strikes me that the UK government at the moment thinks that if it just cowers in the corner, maybe it'll just hope that we're just hoping that Donald Trump isn't too mean to us. And I don't think that is a decent strategy. So I think we need to talk tough, like many other countries are doing, France, Germany, Canada and the rest. And I think that starts by saying that we should be at least preparing for retaliatory tariffs. And secondly, if we're going to negotiate with Donald Trump, if we want to negotiate a trade deal on services, then in a negotiation you have to have other options on the table to show that you're prepared to walk away. And the other option we should have on the table is negotiating this customs union with the European Union. What I'm particularly worried about, and what I think is unforgivable, is the government seems to be saying that they're happy to reduce the digital services tax, which is the tech tax on Elon Musk and 20 other...
Of 2%.
Of 2%. This tech tax that is waged on the 20 largest online social media companies. And the government is thinking about reducing that, whilst at the same time making a cut to personal independence payments to disabled people. And I think it would be unforgivable for the government to go ahead with these cuts for disabled people who are receiving, and their carers, but at the same time giving a £5 billion giveaway to these big online giants in an attempt to appease Donald Trump. So we've got to talk tough.
So when you say we've got to talk tough and retaliate, what would you do? Well, so would you retaliate with tariffs of our own, and if so, on what?
Two things. We should start preparing the groundwork for retaliatory tariffs, so it is an option that we have.
On what? Like what?
Well, start with Tesla tariffs to start with. So hit Elon Musk and Donald Trump where it hurts.